Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the trade deadline. It's a very interesting topic, and of course, as many of you guys have known by now, the Chicago Bulls ended up not pulling the trigger on any trade for this trade deadline. Many people might be upset by that. Many people might think it's a good move, but all that being said, we're going to talk about the reasons why and the future of the Chicago Bulls team now in this video. Let's do it. What's going on, everybody? It's the Bulls Show, aka Aidan, and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be talking about the trade deadline, as well as discussing the future of the team and the All-Star selection as well for Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. It's getting really close, ladies and gentlemen, and it's an exciting time to be a Bulls fan. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bulls Show. Turn notifications on and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls team at the moment, and what do you think the plan is heading into obviously the buyout season now, as well as the future heading into our playoff, hopefully important playoff run. First, let's talk about the All-Stars, because I think we're going to start this thing on a positive note. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan have been selected for their respective teams, and it looks like they're going to be facing each other, ladies and gentlemen. DeMar DeRozan has been selected as obviously the All-Star starter for Team LeBron, and Kevin Durant has selected Zach LaVine as an All-Star reserve. Very interesting conversation, and of course, that battle that I wanted to have in that All-Star game between Zach and DeMar, them guarding each other one-on-one, has now become a big possibility. And something else that I haven't mentioned that is very important is that it's a guarantee that one of these Chicago Bulls players is going to win on behalf of our city. That's obviously an incredible moment, and of course, we always want to see Bulls players win, and this pretty much guarantees that we are going to see a Chicago Bulls player win. So who's it going to be, ladies and gentlemen? Is it going to be Zach LaVine? Is it going to be DeMar DeRozan? Ultimately, as well, let me know in the comments below, who do you think has the overall team advantage? Because there are quite a few very interesting selections from both Team LeBron and Team Kevin Durant. And of course, with Kevin Durant being out as well, that puts them at a disadvantage because he's been a really important player for his respective team and of course the NBA. It's a big loss to miss Kevin Durant, but all the way through, just let me know in the comments below what you guys think about the advantage or the disadvantages for these teams. So congratulations to DeMar and Zach. But now let's move into other things, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about the trade deadline. Now, as you're well aware, the Chicago Bulls did not make any moves in terms of the trade deadline. And all I can say at the moment is that I can understand people's frustration. Of course, I can understand people's frustration. You see so many teams, especially in the Eastern Conference, make so many moves. Moves that arguably can make teams better and teams worse. But moves nonetheless that are trying to put teams in better positions to try and win something this season. And the Chicago Bulls kind of not really got involved in that situation and decided to keep their cards close to their chest and decided to run with the team that they first brought in free agency. It's a hard one to swallow, and I can understand why people are very upset with that. But ultimately, there are a few reasons as to why they probably didn't pull the trigger on many trades. One, as Artorias said himself, there's a very small sample size of what this team can fully be when it's fully healthy. And that small sample size kind of affected them in the way that they wanted to do their own business, because they don't really have enough information and intel planted within the entirety of their team for them to make the right move for their respective decisions. For example, if this team was fully healthy all season, they would have a lot more understanding of what this team could be, and they would have a lot more understanding of what this team would need. Of course, as Bulls fans, we can clearly see as well what this team might need. We do need a little bit of help in the power forward position. We do need a little bit of help in the backup center position. Those are two important roles that I feel like the Chicago Bulls still would really need some value off of. But at the end of the day, a small sample size to make a massive change, I don't think it was ever going to happen. And I didn't want to be disrespectful to the guys that thought they would get a player like a Jeremy Grant or would get a player like a Christian Wood get a good player, a big player in return. But just the sample size itself, it did feel to me at least unlikely that we were going to make a massive trade this period in the trade deadline. Maybe I would expect at least one or two smaller trades. I expected that to happen because at the end of the day, we kind of know the situation that we're in. But obviously, they decided not to pull the trigger on it. And out of everybody that I've said, everything that I have said throughout the course of this trade deadline, beginning of the season, last season, Arturas is the one that I trust. When he speaks, I listen. When he says something, it makes sense for why they decided not to pull the trigger. So, it does make sense to me why they didn't. And I will trust him to make the best decisions going forward. And I trust that him not getting involved in this trade deadline as much as other teams, at all really, is the right decision for the Chicago Bulls team. Obviously, too, is that potentially we just couldn't really get the players that we wanted. Again, Arturas said he loved this roster. Billy said he loves this roster. And maybe that is very true. Of course, I'm sure this Bulls team is very, very well connected. And this Bulls team obviously loves each other. It makes sense. Obviously, you don't get to the top of the Eastern Conference or second in the Eastern Conference at the moment without obviously having that a little bit of, I guess, camaraderie, being close together, sticking together. All these things are very valuable for the Chicago Bulls, but maybe the assets that we have simply could not bring us what we necessarily needed for the trade deadline. So maybe players like Tony Bradley or even players like Kobe White that's been considered to be on the block for quite some time now just wasn't enough to go after the players that we really wanted. And that also could be a reason why we didn't do anything in the trade deadline, because the trades have to be perfect for the Chicago Bulls team. Again, we're currently sitting second in the Eastern Conference. We were first for a lot of the period of this Eastern Conference and this season for the Chicago Bulls. So if we were going to go and make a big trade, it had to be the right trade. We can't just make a big trade for the sake of making a big trade, because this team has been very good when it's all together. And making a big trade could definitely ruin some of that chemistry that we did have with the Chicago Bulls team from the very beginning of the season. So maybe the assets that we had to try and get those big players just wasn't enough, and the Bulls were not willing to risk bringing some of those players in, while obviously at the expense of getting somebody else out from the Chicago Bulls team. And I think the third reason is probably a very important reason as well. Maybe we are looking for buyouts for the Chicago Bulls. Obviously, that's the next step that all of us are going to turn to. Many of us might be very upset with Arturas and Eversley and the whole Chicago Bulls front office for not making a trade. But obviously, a lot of us will turn our attention to the buyout market, see what's available, and see if there's a potential option to bring some of those guys in that, of course, we still need as help. We still need a backup center, in my opinion. I think that's a very big target that we have to pursue. The buyout market could be an option for the Chicago Bulls to go out and pursue that guy. Obviously, the power forward position as well, some people really think that we do need help in. I personally think we're going to be waiting for Patrick Williams to fill that role. But if there's a power forward available that could kind of play as a backup center as well, maybe there's a buyout option that the Bulls can pursue. Regardless of this situation, ladies and gentlemen, the Bulls clearly love this roster. And this roster has done a lot to deserve the love and the respect from the front office and the fans. So I don't think many of us are too drastically upset, but I know many people will be very upset because we've seen what Philadelphia has done. We've seen what Brooklyn has done. We've seen what other teams like Charlotte have done. We've seen a lot of teams make a lot of big moves in the Eastern Conference. But this team has stuck together pretty much from the beginning of the season, and we've deserved the right to see what this team can do towards the end. If we win a championship, that's going to be sensational, and obviously Arturas, we will say we'll make the right move. But even if we don't win that championship, even if we don't come close, this team has done good enough, in my opinion, to deserve what it's going to be like, or what we could end up getting out of this season with this team, and hopefully with this team fully healthy. We'll wait and see, ladies and gentlemen, but that's the trade deadline for us. We made no moves, and we ended up being a little bit patient. We kept our cards close to our chest, and maybe we will end up being a little bit more strategic than we first anticipated. Maybe only certain buyouts are going to be available for us. Maybe some buyouts that we all desperately want the Chicago Bulls to pursue, and we don't pursue them. Fact of the matter is, we really don't know what Arturas is thinking, and maybe his thought process is to simply keep the team intact and see how far we can go and make those big decisions next season when we have the sample size that he really wants to see if this team can go out and do something special or not. We'll wait and see, ladies and gentlemen. But that's the trade deadline for the Chicago Bulls today. Obviously, we do have more rumors in terms of buyouts. For example, Goran Dragic was a big buyout option for the Chicago Bulls that we were interested in. Again, looks like we do need a little bit of guard help until Alex Caruso, Lonzo, even Ayo can come back. So, of course, we are kind of short in the guard department. So, Goran Dragic would be a good option, of course. But even then, there should still be a little bit more that the Bulls will be linked to going forward. So we'll wait and see what we can do. We'll wait and see what we do decide to do. And maybe the best course of action is no action. And we'll wait and see how the Bulls can pursue that. It's an exciting time, the trade deadline. And all these crazy things happening, it makes a lot of sense that the Bulls would want to get involved. At least the fans would want to see the Bulls get involved. But sometimes in the hype, in the whole grand scheme of things, throughout all of the things that have been happening in terms of the NBA, sometimes the best course of action, as I said, is to keep this team well intact and to not force any unnecessary trades, especially when we don't really know what exactly this team can be when everybody's fully healthy. Arturas is the one that I trust, and if he's the one that's saying that the sample size isn't enough, then we're going to have to wait and see when the sample size is enough, if he was right or wrong on this situation. Let's wait and see, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. If you did realize I didn't upload a video yesterday because I was preparing, just like everybody else. I was preparing to make a video about a Bulls trade if there was one to happen. Obviously, things didn't happen that way, so I got a little bit of a day off in that regard. I'm not really too happy about that, but at the end of the day, things happen in mysterious ways. And now we're going to be back, ladies and gentlemen. We got a game against the Timberwolves to focus on as well, so we can't get too out of place. We have to keep our focus in check on the things that we are really focusing on, and that's improving our record, and that's climbing up in the Eastern Conference and having stability in where we are and what we're aspiring to be. That's the next step. We can't dwell on the trade deadline. For many people that are going to be dwelling on it and being frustrated with it, we can't spend too long being upset about the trade deadline. We have to move forward. We have to carry on. We have to look at buyouts, but we also have to look at the team that we have and how they can improve throughout the course of the season. We'll wait and see what the Bulls can come up with, and hopefully it's still a very good season to look forward to. Take care and peace.